Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. I want to talk about selling your business the right way using a pitch book. So I've got two objectives for this video. The first thing is if you're trying to sell your business or you're planning to sell your business at some point in the future, follow along. I'll show you how to do it using a pitch book. The other angle is if you're thinking about starting a business or you're trying to organize your thoughts for a relatively new business, you can plan that business using a pitch book approach. In other words, you could say to yourself, I'm starting this business. I know I'm going to sell it at some point in the future. I'm going to plan out my pitch book that I will use to sell it X number of years in the future. I'm going to plan my pitch book now, and then I am going to grow into the pitch book. In other words, if you listen to what I present here, this will explain how to present a business for sale. If it's an existing business, this will fit right into what you're trying to do. But if you're starting something, you can use the same approach. You can create a pitch book early and then grow into the pitch book as you develop the business. So there's two different angles in this video. So a pitch book is basically stating the problem your business solves and then stating your business's solution to that problem. And from the very beginning, you should set your expectations based on the type of business and problem that you're solving. There are want type of businesses, things that people want but may not need. There are needs-based businesses, things that they don't necessarily want but they need them. As an example, people need to get oil changes regularly for their car, right? They may not want to, but it's a need. They have to do it. But there are all sorts of different kinds of businesses that are both want, and then there are businesses that are need. So in this particular video, I'm using as an example an iPhone app that you wrote or you had written for you. That's kind of a want business because there's a ton of iPhone apps, and it's not clear that any one iPhone app could take enough market share to make a significant, to be interesting enough to be, to command a decent price at the time of sale. There are so many apps out there. This is more of a want type of business. And I apologize if you're a software engineer. I'm a software engineer by trade also. But the reality is it's pretty easy if you have software development skills to create apps for phones. So this is more of a want business, not a need business. So a need business is a mobile oil change. That's the example for this video, okay? So this is not that easy of a business to pull off. It's a bit tedious. There's not a lot of intellectual stimulation. I mean, if you compare it to writing an iPhone app, changing oil all day for customers' cars, not so interesting. So this is not that easy of a business to do. It is a need business. This is much easier to sell than a want business. So if you have a business, you should probably be honest with yourself and try to figure out as you go, if you have a want type of business, how can I make it a more compelling sell to someone who might want to buy it? With a need type of business, if you have a big customer list, man, that's going to be easy to sell by comparison. It's a harder business to operate, but it's much easier to sell. Just to set your expectations. Now, are there exceptions to that rule? Yes, there are some need businesses that won't sell as readily as a want business. But in general, if you have a choice, if you're early in the game and you're trying to figure out, do I do business A or business B, and one of them is a need, I would go with the need business. You can always make a success in a need business and then come back and do another business later that's a little more risky, a little more, something that's a little less likely to make a success out of. But if you're getting started, a need-based business, it won't ding your confidence as much because if it's a need, it becomes obvious to a buyer that, okay, they've got a customer list. This is something people need. All I have to do is buy it and operate it correctly, and I'll have a good business. So with the iPhone app, it's anyone's guess with a want type of business. Okay, so let's go into the pitch book design. This is how you would lay out your pitch book. And by the way, this is not the end story of pitch book, using pitch books to sell a business. This is a pretty broad topic. So this is just an overview, just an introduction. This is a video. I can't cover everything, but I'm going to hit the high points. So the pitch book design. Step one, you want to state the problem. People need oil changes because they're too busy to spend a few hours dropping the car off, getting a rental car, maybe having to do that, or maybe having to wait around at the shop while the oil change is being done, then driving the car home. So you've lost some time there. A lot of people don't have time. They're too busy at work to do that. A solution is what you're offering, a mobile oil change service while you work. In other words, Your target customer is someone who parks their car during the day at work, and your business drives to their location, changes the oil for them, and then you charge their credit card. So that's step 2, is the solution, state the solution. Step 3, state, and by the way, the pitch book design, this is what you're presenting to a selling audience. So the way these are designed, these pitch books, is the assumption is you have met with one or more buyers and you're presenting the problem and then your solution. And then the next thing is you state the total addressable market for your business, the total addressable market. That just means how many people in your metropolitan statistical area are candidate customers for that business. You could use DMV information, how many licensed drivers are on the road in my metropolitan statistical area, MSA. For example, in the metropolitan statistical area of Los Angeles, as an example, there are millions and millions of people who are in that total addressable market. So that's a good market, right? Now, if you're in a small town in the Midwest with, 800 population, different story. The total addressable market makes it a tougher sell. But if you have a large total addressable market and you're pitching this business for sale, it's a much easier selling proposition. It's much easier to find a buyer. Okay, so you state the size of the total addressable market using publicly available data. In this case, this is an oil change business. It's pretty easy to find out how many licensed drivers are on the road in your region. And then you can figure out how many oil changes per month of the total addressable market. So you'd have to, for this business, you'd have to know how often on average people get their oil change. Somewhere between 3,000 to 6,000 miles generally. And then you'd have to figure out how much people are commuting in your area, and then you could figure out how many oil changes per month in the total addressable market. For example, if you find out that the market size is 1 million people, and a third of those people need to get an oil change every 3 months, then you would say, okay, 1 million people divided by a third is about 330,000 people are getting their oil change at least once over a 3-month period. So that's, 333,000 divided by 3 is over 100,000 people per month getting an oil change in that particular situation, as an example. And then you would want to state the revenue if you were able to capture 50% or more of the total addressable market. Now, I'll say this about pitch books. If you look into this, some recommendations are to state that, okay, when you use your pitch book to sell your business, you should report on the possible revenue if you captured all the market. I don't think that's practical. I don't think that's realistic. The fact is, capturing 50% of a market is some feat. That's quite a feat. That's quite an accomplishment. So as a middle ground, I'm saying 50% here of the total addressable market. Your buyers are going to look at this number and they're going to use their best judgment if they have knowledge of your particular business on how realistic it is, whatever number you use there. So you want to put some thought into that, how much revenue you capture for X% of your total addressable market. Okay, so the next step in your pitch book is you should describe your team, number of years experience in the field for the key team members, the people at the top, successful exits in a related business of any team members, and state whether earnouts are possible for the leadership. In other words, an earnout means, okay, we're going to sell the business to a buyer and the top 2 guys are willing to stay on and train the new buyer's people for 6 months or a year, or some other agreement for the earnout. There might be the buyer will pay 50% up front and then another quarter 3 months later, and then the final quarter after another 3 months. The earnout is a negotiated thing. It could be as long as 3 years for the earnout. The buyer could say, you want us to pay you $100 million for your business, we'll give you $50 million now. And in every year for the next 3 years, we're going to track the numbers. We're going to check the key performance indicators for this business to make sure that we bought what we thought we bought, and then we'll pay you at the end of the 3 years. If we meet these revenue targets, we'll pay for the balance of the purchase price, the other $50 million. It's a negotiated thing. The earnout just simply means leadership, key members of the leadership team agree to stay on to transition the business to the new ownership. And the variation in the negotiation as far as how much time is involved. Some owners say, I don't want to spend any more time in this business. I want a cash sale and then I want to be done with it. So that's an earnout of 0. So it's a negotiated thing. But you've described the team. The next thing in the pitch book is you want to state the selling price that you're looking for, and also the trends in the money trends in the business. Show the most recent 2 years of revenue numbers and EBITDA numbers, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. You want to show your most recent 2 years track record of your revenue and earnings numbers to the buyer. And then you'll want to show the typical earnings multiple for this type of business to the buyer. In other words, you will say the last 10 companies in our particular industry that sold within the last 24 months sold for a multiple of five times earnings or 2 times earnings. It's something you'll have to look up. You're trying to justify your selling price. You give the selling price. Here's how we arrived at it. We've had stable revenue and earnings for 2 years, and the most recent businesses that have sold at a multiple of 2 times earnings or 5 times earnings, whatever it is for that business. And then at the end is a question and answer period of 45 minutes. Now I want to say something about this the right way to sell the business. So when you present your business for sale, you're presenting it to one or more buyers. Chances are they have looked at other businesses and other owners who are trying to sell their business. And you do not want to lose the audience along the way here. So what I mean by that is some people, when they sell the business, they think the more pages of information I give to prospective buyers, that will tell them how thorough I've been in putting my case together for selling the business. That's not how it works. The audience of buyers most likely have looked at other businesses, and they're not going to wade through 50 or 70 pages of detail. In other words, it's a mistake to think that if you hand someone a phone book of information, that will give the impression that you were thorough and they'll have confidence in you. That's kind of a mistake. With this, if you spend 5 minutes going through this, bam, you've captured their interest. You've respected their time. Their time's valuable. They're the ones with the money. They're the ones who are going to buy the business. In the very first 2 steps, the problem and the solution, get through that in the first 10 to 20 seconds. This is an elevator pitch kind of approach. Elevator pitch. Think elevator pitch. 10 seconds to present the problem. People need oil changes. They're too busy. And our solution is we have a mobile oil change operation serving 1,000 current customers on a regular basis throughout the year. 10 seconds, bam, you've captured the audience, you've grabbed the audience, and then you can go through the rest of the pitch book, spend another 5 minutes going through this. And at the end, you can give them a 20-page more details. And I'll tell you in a couple minutes what you might consider putting into this. But the number of steps here, there's 6 steps. The question and answer, this is the longest part of the presentation. You should allow up to 45 minutes. Probably it won't take that long. But if you really have your act together and you present your case for selling the business quickly and you have good numbers, you will attract some interest. People will be interested, and you'll know right away because it doesn't take you too long to get through your presentation, and you can tell right away if there's interest. And then you'll find out in the question and answers if anyone had any special questions that may not have been interesting to the bulk of the audience. So you find that out in the question and answer. In other words, you don't want to anticipate having to answer a bunch of outfield sort of questions with the assumption you're going to answer everybody's questions in the presentation. Put that off and wait for them to ask the questions that are particular to their worldview or their view of the business. Go through this, 10 to 20 seconds for the first 2 steps, and then 5 minutes for the rest, and then 45 minutes Q&A. Elevator pitch style, and you should get to the strong selling point ASAP. That's step 2. If you walk into a presentation and within the first 10 seconds you tell the audience, we have an established business, we're going to show you the most recent 2 years of earnings and revenue and earnings, and we have a client list of 1,000 customers in our metropolitan statistical area that are signed up to us for a year at a time to do their oil changes. So you've gotten to the strong selling point within 10 seconds. Man, have you captured the audience's attention. Because your audience of buyers, they have sat through presentations that it took the presenter 10 minutes to get to the strongest selling point. Tell them the strong selling point as quickly as possible, or you can lose the audience. Okay, so the 20 pages of more detail at the end. Let me just make suggestions about what you might want to include in there. So you'd want to have accounting documents. They don't have to be super sophisticated. If you have an accountant you work with or a bookkeeper, maybe just start with the profit and loss statement at the very top of the 20-page collection, a profit and loss, and then show the balance sheet, the income statement, the statement of cash flows, the statement of retained earnings. Retained earnings, Changes in the equity during the reporting period, any sale or purchase of shares of the company, any payouts of dividends, changes caused by profit or loss in the business, and then key suppliers and vendors, and then a SWOT analysis, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what that is, the SWOT analysis is, this is a 20-page more detailed summary. You're not going to do a really intense SWOT, but you can present the internal and external factors that present opportunities and risks to the business in the SWOT, in the brief, the SWOT summary that you do in this 20-pager. You probably do not want to give them a phone book, because a lot of people won't even read that. In fact, during the Q&A, you can ask, who wants a 20-page summary that goes into a little more detail about what we already presented? Bam, you'll know right away if no one asks that you either did a good job at presenting your case to sell the business, or no one's interested. One of those two things. But if anybody does say, I want to look at the 20-page summary, then you give them the 20-page summary, and you can put a line somewhere in that summary that says, if you want even more detail, ask, and we will help you out. And that way no one feels like you're trying to be evasive or something. You can even state at the beginning, look, we're going to be as concise as possible. We're going to be as respectful of your time. Your time is valuable as possible. And don't worry, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. And then after that, we're going to give you a chance to have a 20-page summary. And then after that, if you need more information, we will be there for you. Here's our contact information. So basically, you want to just present the case using this pitch book approach. You can look online to study more about what pitch books are like. There's a lot of different ways to do it, or a lot of different opinions on how to do it. But this is basically, you have an existing business to sell, and you present some pertinent information that will attract the buyer. And if you're, the other way to use a pitch book is, if you're just starting a business and you're trying to figure out how to make things work, start at the end. Say to yourself, I'm starting the business now. I want to sell this thing within 5 years. Start at the end process with a pitch book that you would like to be able to present to a buyer, and then work your way into those plans on what you'd need to do. For example, if you actually were starting a mobile oil change, on day one, you'd want to say, I want to sell the business in 5 years with a customer list of 1,000 customers. You could then say, in order to get 1,000 customers on an annual contract within the next 5 years, I've got to reach out to 20 times that number of prospects each year to sign up. In other words, the marketing, filling in how much marketing effort you'd need to make would be determined by how big of a customer list you'd like to present 5 years down the road. So that's another way to use the pitch book, is to plan with the end in mind, and then grow into the pitch book. But basically, this is a good way to present a business to one or more buyers, and to do it in an efficient way, and then to let them know if they need more information, you're there for them, and then provide your contact information. Now, if you're in high tech and you have a want style business, that's a tougher road to go down. If you have a need type of business, it's a much easier process. It's like anything else. If you're selling a need, like bandages, to hospitals, that's one thing. If you're trying to sell iPhone apps for ordering gourmet meals in a hospital, different. It's a little bit different. It's not really a need. So pick your battles. Maybe your first business should be a need type of business. Now, if you have any questions about this, I didn't go into great depth because this is a video, and you can look up pitch books online to learn more about them. But this is a really good way to get your thoughts together, put together a presentation that will grab the audience really quickly, and try to get some interested parties and sell your business. If you do have a need type of business with a customer list and 2 years of good revenue and EBITDA, you're not going to have much trouble selling that business. In fact, you might say, why am I selling this business if it's doing well? So I want to thank everyone for watching. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and have a great day.